The Astralis Station hung in orbit above Korval Prime, its metallic surface gleaming under the light of its twin suns. From the observation deck, Captain Elara Draymond gazed down at the planet's verdant surface, her brow furrowed in thought. Reports of strange seismic activity had been streaming in, and now, as if the galaxy wanted to underline the urgency, the sky over Korval Prime was fracturing. "Energy reading spiking, Captain," Lieutenant Harris reported, his tone edged with unease. "It's not natural." Elara didn't need the confirmation. The sight spoke volumes. The atmosphere rippled and tore as if a colossal, unseen hand was slicing through it. Shards of light and fire plummeted to the planet below, each impact visible from orbit. "What are we looking at?" Elara asked. Harris ran his hands over the console. "Preliminary scans suggest some kind of crystalline material, emitting energy signatures unlike anything we've seen. It's alive?" Elara guessed. Harris hesitated. "In a way, yes. The energy is pulsing like a heartbeat." Elara turned, her expression set. "Prep the shuttle. I'm leading the landing party." Minutes later, the shuttle pierced Korval Prime's atmosphere, weaving through turbulence caused by the falling shards. Below, the once pristine fields and rivers had become a landscape of jagged craters, each one marked by the glowing presence of a shard. The team landed near the largest fragment, its jagged edges shimmering with an unnatural luminescence. Elara stepped out first, her boots sinking into the scorched earth. The shard towered above them, its surface etched with shifting alien symbols. "Scan it," she ordered. Harris and Specialist Taven approached cautiously, their scanners whirring. "It's emitting low-frequency vibrations," Taven said, "almost like it's calling out." "Calling to what?" Elara asked. Before anyone could answer, the ground beneath the shard began to tremble. A low hum filled the air, rising in pitch until it became an almost melodic resonance. The shard pulsed with light, and the symbols on its surface began to rearrange themselves. "Back up," Elara shouted. Her team scrambled as the shard emitted a beam of light into the sky, connecting with similar beams from shards across the horizon. Above, the once disjointed fragments of light began to form a lattice, an intricate sigil stretching across the heavens. "What the hell is it doing?" Harris asked, his voice tight. Elara stared at the glowing network, dread curling in her gut. "It's a signal," she said, "but to whom?" But the pulsing lattice of light above Korval Prime continued to grow, connecting shard to shard in a mesmerizing, otherworldly pattern. Captain Elara Draymond clenched her fists, her gaze fixed on the sky. Whatever this network was, it wasn't stopping. "Captain!" Specialist Taven shouted, his voice trembling. "The shard, it's resonating with our equipment. I'm picking up voices." Elara turned sharply. "Voices? From where?" Taven tapped his scanner, his brow furrowed. "Not from the shard directly, it's like echoes from somewhere else. They're layered, overlapping. I'll amplify them." A metallic whine pierced the air as Taven's device crackled to life. Then, faintly at first, but growing louder, came voices, alien, fragmented, and incomprehensible. The tones were melodic yet carried a chilling intensity, like a choir singing in a language too ancient to decipher. "Can we translate that?" Elara asked. "Not yet," Taven replied. "It's not just a language, it's a form of energy communication, like it's alive and trying to synchronize." "Synchronize with what?" Lieutenant Harris demanded, glancing at the shard as its light pulsed faster, in rhythm with the voices. Before Taven could answer, the shard emitted another surge of energy. The ground shook violently, and the lattice in the sky flared. Above, a ripple spread through the sigil, and Elara's gut told her that something or someone was responding. "Fall back to the shuttle!" Elara barked. "Now!" As the team sprinted toward their ship, the shard pulsed again. This time, arcs of energy lashed out, striking the ground and carving jagged fissures into the terrain. The air crackled with an electric charge, making the hair on Elara's arm stand on end. "Captain!" Harris yelled. "It's targeting us!" Elara turned in time to see one of the energy arcs streak toward them. Instinct took over and she shoved Taven aside just as the arc slammed into the ground where he had stood. The force sent her sprawling, pain flaring in her shoulder as she hit the dirt. "Elara!" Harris's voice cut through the chaos as he ran to her side. "You're hit?" "I'm fine," she gasped, wincing as she got to her feet. "Keep moving." The team reached the shuttle, Harris slamming the hatch shut as the engines roared to life. Elara took the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls. The shuttle lifted off just as another energy arc struck the ground below them. "We need to regroup," Elara said, her voice tight. "Find out what we're dealing with." Harris frowned, staring at the shard as it receded below. "Captain, what if it's not just here to signal something? What if it's summoning something?" Ilara's blood ran cold at the thought. "Then we need answers. Fast." Back aboard the Astralis Station, Elara convened an emergency meeting. The science team worked furiously to analyze the data they had gathered, while the tactical officers prepared for the worst. "It's not a weapon," Taven said, addressing the room. "At least not in the traditional sense. The shards are transmitting something. Coordinates, maybe. A summoning beacon. It's an invitation." "An invitation to what?" Elara asked. Taven hesitated. "To something that doesn't belong in our reality." The room fell silent. Elara met Harris's gaze, her own unease mirrored in his eyes. The pulsing lattice above Korval Prime wasn't just a signal, it was a doorway. And whatever was answering the call was drawing closer. The briefing room buzzed with a nervous energy as Captain Elara Draymond leaned over the holotable. The projection displayed the pulsing lattice above Korval Prime, now growing even more intricate. The shards scattered across the planet appeared to act as anchors, linking together to create a massive structure. "This isn't just a beacon," Taven said, his voice low. "It's a gateway." Elara's eyes narrowed. "A gateway to where?" "We can't be certain," Taven replied, "but the energy signature suggests it's breaching dimensional boundaries. Whatever's on the other side, it's not part of our universe." Lieutenant Harris stood at the edge of the room, his arms crossed tightly. "If this thing's a doorway, how do we close it?" The question hung heavy in the air. Elara exhaled sharply, her mind racing. "Let's assume we can't. What's coming through? Do we have any clue?" Taven hesitated, then activated another projection. A spectral image appeared, faint and fragmented, but enough to send a chill through the room. The figure was massive and serpentine, its form shifting as though it was never meant to be fully perceived in 3 dimensions. "Is that a life form?" Harris asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Taven nodded grimly. "More like a concept of one. The transmission suggests it's something ancient. It doesn't exist within the bounds of time and space as we understand them." "So," Elara said, her tone razor sharp, "we're dealing with a creature that breaks the laws of physics, and it's trying to come here. How long until it arrives?" "Hours," Taven said. "Maybe less." The Astralis Station crew worked at a breakneck pace. Engineers reinforced shields, scientists ran calculations, and tactical officers armed every weapon system on the station. But Elara couldn't shake the feeling that none of it would be enough. Back in the command center, Harris approached her. "Captain, we've seen a lot of strange things, but this is different. How do we even fight something that exists beyond our understanding?" Elara stared at the holographic lattice, her mind running through possibilities. "We don't fight it," she said finally. "We contain it." Taven looked up from his console, startled. "Contain it? How?" "The shards," Elara replied. "If they're acting as anchors for the lattice, then destroying them might destabilize the structure. It won't stop whatever's on the other side, but it might buy us time." Harris frowned. "And if we can't destroy them in time?" Elara's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure whatever comes through doesn't leave Korval Prime." As the clock ticked down, Elara led a strike team back to the surface. They landed near one of the larger shards, its glow now pulsating with an almost hypnotic rhythm. The air felt heavy, charged with an unnatural energy. "Plant the charges," Elara ordered, her voice cutting through the eerie silence. The team moved swiftly, setting explosives around the shard. But as they worked, the ground trembled violently. A deafening hum filled the air and the shard's light intensified, casting the forest in an otherworldly glow. "It's happening!" Taven shouted over the noise. "The gateway's opening!" Elara turned to see the lattice in the sky twisting, folding in on itself. A rift began to form at its center, a swirling void that seemed to devour the light around it. From within the rift, the serpentine figure began to emerge, its form shimmering and unstable. "Detonate the charges," Elara yelled. The explosions rocked the area, sending shards of crystal flying in every direction. The shard collapsed, its glow extinguished. For a moment, the lattice above flickered, but then it stabilized, its light burning brighter than before. "It's not enough," Taven said, his voice shaking. "The other shards are compensating." Elara clenched her fists, her mind racing. "Then we go for the source. We take the fight to the rift." The team scrambled back to their shuttle as the serpentine entity pushed further through the gateway. Its massive form twisted in the air, an impossible amalgamation of light and shadow. Elara knew they were running out of time. As the shuttle lifted off, she glanced back at the ground below. The shards continued to pulse, feeding energy into the lattice. Destroying them individually wasn't going to cut it. "We need a new plan," she said, determination hardening her voice. "Get us to the rift. If this thing wants to come through, we'll make sure it regrets it."